Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Yashodanandana Brajajana Randana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Randana Yashodanandana Rajajana Randana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivraja Kacharya Ashtottara Sata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning to you and Hare Krishna. How are you all this morning? Good? I'm all right. I've got a nice chair. What about the rest of you? Where do they find this piece of equipment? Very nice. I come here, everything's new. They've got the new railings. I hadn't seen those. When did those go up? Oh, very nice. So today is the, believe it or not, the first day of spring. It's the first day of spring. You don't believe me? Just like in politics, to make everybody feel good, you have to pretend that something is when it isn't, and something isn't when it actually is. The body politic doesn't follow science. So we have to pretend that something is real to keep people happy. Have you noticed that in society today? You have to pretend that something is real when it's not. So in the same way, I'm wearing yellow. The deities are wearing yellow. Some of you are wearing yellow because you got the memo that on Vasant Panchami, the first day of spring, you wear yellow. Today if you go to Mayapur, yes sir, thank you very much, you got the memo. On a yellow post-it, obviously. If you go to Mayapur today, deities wearing yellow. Even the sannyasis will be carrying a yellow flower garland on their stick, their bamboo stick. This is to herald the beginning of the first flowers in the fields of spring. This is called Vasant, or spring, Panchami. Panchami because today is the 5th day of the Shukla Paksha, the 5th day of the bright fortnight in the month of Magh, which is a cold month. So we are celebrating spring. However, that is in India. And today, we shall have to wait until March the 20th before spring comes here. We are not so fortunate. But today is all over the world Vasant Panchami. And it's important in Vasant Panchami that we remember the goddess of learning. The goddess of learning. She who makes learning simple. Especially since this is the home of the school of bhakti. Hooray! We should remember the goddess of learning occasionally, don't you? Or if you're in South India, you will remember Hayagriva, but Saraswati for sure. And those of us who study the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I hope is everybody, we remember the invocation that allows us to first of all learn the Srimad Bhagavatam, and second to remember the Srimad Bhagavatam. This invocation here. So let us recite this one. I don't have a copy, so I'll have to read it from the book. It's okay. Oh, you can, Coco, you can bring that. You can bring that book. Find the page. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 124. Very famous. If you're good, you know this one already. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam. And as we chant this, you should be thinking, how can I learn this so that the rest of my life I can remember it? Please don't let me end up like him, who sits in a big chair but needs the prompt in the form of the book. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam. Line by line. Narayanam Namaskritya Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Naranchaiva Narottamam Naranchaiva Narottamam. Now with your eyes closed. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam. Okay, now you can open your eyes. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Tato Jayam Udirayet Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Gentlemen. please. Narayanam, the personality of Godhead. Namakritya, after offering respectful obeisances. Naram cha eva, and Narayana Rishi. Nara Uttamam, the supermost human being. Devim, the goddess. Saraswatim, the mistress of learning. Vyasam, Vyasadeva. Tata, thereafter. Jayam, all that is meant for conquering. Udirayet, be announced. Translation. Shishi Radha Gokula Nanda Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Shishi Gauranitai Ki Jai. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Kindly repeat. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Srila Prabhupada's purport. All the Vedic literatures and the Puranas are meant for conquering the darkest region of material existence. The living being is in the state of forgetfulness of his relation with God due to his being overly attracted to material sense gratification from time immemorial. His struggle for existence in the material world is perpetual, and it is not possible for him to get out of it by making plans. If he at all wants to conquer this perpetual struggle for existence, he must re-establish his eternal relation with God. And one who wants to adopt such remedial measures must take shelter of literature such as the Vedas and Puranas. Foolish people say that the Puranas have no connection with the Vedas. Interesting. However, the Puranas are supplementary explanations of the Vedas intended for different types of men. All men are not equal. I'll read that again. All men are not equal. Okay, just think about that. Okay, why? There are men who are conducted by the mode of goodness, others who are under the mode of passion, and others who are under the mode of ignorance. Just try teaching this stuff in America. Try teaching it in America, where I've been for a couple of months. You've got to skip purports. The Puranas are so divided that any class of men can take advantage of them and gradually regain their lost position and get out of the hard struggle for existence. Srila Sutta Goswami shows the way of chanting the Puranas. This may be followed by persons who aspire to be preachers of the Vedic literatures and the Puranas. That means you. Srimad Bhagavatam is a spotless Purana, and it is especially meant for them who desire to get out of the material entanglement permanently. Oma Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We are stuck. We're very much stuck in the material world, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Only when you come to that point of understanding that you may not be free does studying the Puranas make any sense. These books don't make any sense to someone who wants to enjoy the material world and continue to make plans to do so. These books cannot even be touched by such persons. They can never, as Prabhupada says, enter into the mysteries of their understanding. You cannot. It will just... I was in Florida at a house program, and I met a yoga teacher. I said to him, "How long have you been a yoga teacher?" He said, about 45 years. I said, Where do you teach yoga? He said, all over the US. I said, well, all over. He said, yep, north, south, east, west. I've been flying all over the country teaching yoga. It's probably not a good thing to fly and teach yoga at the same time. But I said, well, you must have seen devotees in the airports because we've been selling these books in the airports. He said, I never saw one. I said, you've been flying all over America. He said, yeah, during the 70s, 80s. You never saw a Hare Krishna selling this book? He said, no, never saw one. He said, only when I became interested, then I met them. And then suddenly they were everywhere. So this is it's a mysterious book. It's a very mysterious book. One time I knew a chap who was, they used to have seances. And no, you'll go with me. And this man would go into a trance. And he would go like this. Go into a trance. Is there anybody there? And then he would say something. And he said, he made some announcements. And a devotee was just going door to door. And he knocked on the door, walked in. Sometimes devotees wait for someone to say, hello, come in. And sometimes they don't. So he walked in. There's people sitting at the seance. And he put a Bhagavatam on the table in the middle of the seance. And everybody was looking like that. So he said, everybody was, and they started talking to each other. And the man came out of his trance and he said, it has come. And he looked at the devotee and he said, you came. And the devotee went, oh, yeah. And he said, 2 weeks ago, I had a message from the beyond. It said that in a very short while, a book will come into this assembly. It will do you good, and it will do me good. This was the spirit who was speaking. Anyway, there are many, many, many such stories of how by the grace of God we touch the Puranas, we enter into the understanding of the Puranas. This world is not absolute, it's relative. Let me tell you on good experience that we are born, we stay for some time, we get old, and then we vanish. That is something I have learned. I learned it in a book a long time ago, and now I'm experiencing it. This world is a preparation for the next. If you're very good, this world is a preparation for eternity. We can take that. But only by studying the Puranas. Why the Puranas? Why not the Vedas? Because the Vedas mainly deal with, as Krishna says, how to be happy in this world and how to be happy in the next. The Vedas will give you prescriptions of how to attain the heavenly planets. At the end of the Vedas come the Upanishads, which will tell you, hold up, wait a minute, sit down, I want to tell you something. And the thing I want to tell you is, the body is different from the soul. Body's different from the soul. And that there's another destination. And when we get to the Puranas, we suddenly discover that next destination is a brilliant world full of light and color and person and shape and form and sensation, which can only be experienced by the spiritual body. So this is what we learn from the Puranas. The Puranas are the interactions between God and devotees in this world. There are many things, but they're meant for protection and giving us guidance. So these forms of literature are often not fully understood by those who follow the Vedas. So therefore the Srimad Bhagavatam, using the mouthpieces of different sages, talks about the relationship between the Vedas and the Puranas, just so that you do not misunderstand. Therefore we get to the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there very clearly it is said that the Puranas are the ultimate Vedic portion. Anyway, these are spotless. You cannot enter into the Puranas or even find them interesting. You won't even find Srimad Bhagavatam interesting if you think that there's happiness to be gained somewhere in this world. When I lived in Africa, I lived next to a beach that was pure white. The beach was white as snow. The sea was as turquoise, brilliant turquoise. All that you could hear was the conjuring it up for you. All that you could hear was the sound of the wind whistling through the coconut trees, and all you could smell was the smell of jasmine growing, and just it was wonderful. Champak flowers, strange insects, and everybody there who lived there wanted to come to London. Everybody wanted to come to London. You'd see a travel agent in that beautiful paradise, and it was all pictures of Buckingham Palace and red buses. And you go to a travel agent here in this country, you'll see a tropical paradise. Everybody thinks that happiness can be gained from somewhere else, from living somewhere else, from changing their job, to being married to someone else. If you're married, then not being married. If you're not married, then getting married. If you're working at this company, changing your job so you work for this company. If I'm living on a tropical beach, then going to live in London. If I live in London, if my hair is straight, then curling it. If my hair is curly, then straightening it. If my skin is dark, then using Fair and Lovely soap to get it white. If my skin is white, then go to a tanning shop. Everybody thinks that something different will provide the happiness that they need. But the Puranas say, Shanti, Shanti, don't do that. Nothing in this world will give you any help. So on this day, we study the lives of the saints. And we have particular saints. Sometimes we have a saint's day, and some days there are no saints at all. And some days the saints come like a number 42 bus. They come all at once. And you're there at the bus stop waiting for the 42 bus, and 3 of them come along at the same time. So today we have, say Jai, Saraswati Devi. Jai. We have Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Jai. Srila Raghunandan Thakur. Jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Jai. Shri Vishnu Priya. Jai. Did I miss anyone? Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Oh my gosh, Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Jai. Gosh, why do they all choose today? Well, today is the day when if you do music, or certainly if you're a sannyasi, or if you're studying or learning music or any of the arts, expressive arts, you will worship Saraswati today. She is known as the ultimate muse, that gives the benediction of you being able to express yourself. Oh, hello. Express yourself artistically, express yourself, to remember the shlokas that you're trying to remember. And in this way, you'll be a better person. So Saraswati Devi ki jai. Now, I normally start with Raghunath Das Goswami, but I won't today, because normally Raghunandan Thakur doesn't get a look in. He gets a look in just before breakfast, and it's not enough. There's a small village called Srikanda. Srikanda. It is about 20 minutes drive southwest of a place called Katwa. Anybody know what happened in Katwa? Lord Chaitanya had his hair cut, that's right. The greatest miserable occasion in the history of the world. People were crying like anything. The man who cut his hair, he never cut anybody else's hair after that. There's a beautiful painting if you go to the Gopinath Bazaar. Been into that temple? Go to Gopinath Bazaar and you see that beautiful picture, beautiful painting of everybody's weeping and wailing and falling on the ground, and just because the barber is about to cut Lord Chaitanya's hair. Anyway, 20 minutes southwest of that is the village of Srikanda. And in the olden days, we used to use the word Yoga Chakra. Yoga Chakra. It means a particular town where a lot of devotees come from. In the history of early ISKCON, there were some places where different people would come from the same town. Winnipeg. Winnipeg was one of them. Winnipeg had Mother Guru Padma, Vyasaki, Padmapani, Sangha, all from the one town. There was Hawaii, where we had numerous devotees would come. In America, there was some towns. Chicago. Chicago was a yoga chakra. Devotees used to pop out of the ground. And here in this country, it was Cambridge. A lot of devotees from Cambridge. And strangely enough, a downtrodden part of Glasgow, not downtrodden, because there's people in Cumbernauld watching. I'm sorry, Mohini, watching. Cumbernauld. It was just, the devotees would pop out of the ground in Cumbernauld. We couldn't work out what was happening. Are people selling more books there? Are people responding more? But they're just devotees. So Srikanda was one such place. There were three brothers. When I say their names, you'll know them immediately, because they appear in the song that we sing every evening in every Hare Krishna temple all over the world. Mukunda, right? Mukunda and Vasu Ghosh. There it is up there. Mukunda, Narahari, and name of the other brother, Madhava. So Raghunandan Thakur was the young son of Mukunda Datta. All very good Vaishnavas. And as Indian culture would have it, if you go to Srikanda today, the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson is still living there. His name is Panchajanan Vaidya. He's also a doctor. Mukunda Datta was a doctor. So people don't, they don't move very much sometimes. So you can go and meet the relatives. Raghunandan Thakur is said to be a manifestation of Pradyumna, the third member of the Chaturvyuha. So Mukunda, Madhava, and Narahari, of course, Narahari. There are two Naraharis. Sometimes they both wrote songs, so sometimes they're confused. One is Narahari Chakravarti Thakur, and the other is Narahari Sarkar Thakur. Anyway, sometimes the writer of one becomes confused. So Srikhanda is also about an hour northeast of Mayapur. It's an hour northeast. And Mukunda, the father of Raghunandan Thakur, was a doctor for the Shah, a doctor of the Muslim king. And he would be very much engaged in his service. He was a great devotee. There was an incident whereby he was sitting, attending to the king. The king was sitting on a big throne. He was sitting on a lower throne. And someone was fanning the king with a peacock fan. And Mukunda was hardly able to constrain his emotions, seeing the udipan. Udipan means the external stimulus, an external stimulus to remembering Krishna. So a flash of yellow silk or blue or peacock feathers in the mind of a great devotee can stimulate ecstatic love, which is uncontrollable for him. So he fell on the ground. They took him to another room, and the king inquired about his health. He said, "What is wrong with you?" He said, "I saw you faint." He said, "Oh, it's epilepsy. I have some epilepsy." But the king could sort of understand. He'd seen this he'd heard about this phenomenon before, and he'd never known Mukunda to be a sufferer of epilepsy. So Raghunandan was cared for by his uncle Narahari sometimes, who was a very good teacher, And even before he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Narahari had written many songs in praise of Radha and Krishna. Sometimes we think that Lord Chaitanya himself was the first to manifest the teachings of love of Radha and Krishna. But it had been going on. Jayadev Goswami is there, and Narahari Sakura had been writing. Different people had been writing. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended into the midst of that Vaishnava circle. From early childhood, Raghunandan was absorbed in worshipping the family deity. Sometimes we see this with children. There's an innate attraction to what they will do in later life. For some it's cars, for some it's being an astronaut or a fireman, and for some it's worshipping Krishna. Especially when Krishna is in the home. Do not be like the devotee who, after taking initiation, did not introduce his children to Krishna, thinking, well, I became a devotee when I was 20. I will wait till my children are 20 to give them a fair play. Maybe they'll be devotees, maybe they won't. So I'll wait until they're 20. And when the child was 8, he brought the child to a temple. And the little child looked at the altar, which was the first temple he'd been to, and he pointed at Krishna and said, "Who's that guy?" Don't be like that, devotee. Introduce your children. I'm looking at a room full of ashram people. Those of you listening at home, introduce your children to Krishna. We don't run on the assumption that children are not devotees of Krishna. We run on the assumption that they are eternal spirit souls, servants of Krishna. They'll be happy. There'll be less madness when they get older. So he was introduced to Krishna at an early age. The deity was Gopinath. One time Mukunda had to go away to attend to some clinical business in another village. He said, "My son," he said, "I want you to do the Raj Bhoga." He said, "You're getting very good at it now." How old was he? 5, 6, something like that. He said, "I want you to do the Raj Bhoga offering. You put all the food on a plate, you offer it to Krishna, ask Krishna to eat it, And then when Krishna eats it, you take it off, and that will be prasadam. Okay, you understand? And then when I come back, then we can have dinner. So the child did this, but of course Krishna, Gopinath, did not eat. The child came back. After a few minutes, all the food was still on the plate. And he said, "My dear Lord Gopinath," he said, "please eat. You must eat." Came back again. He said, "My Lord, my father will be so angry if you don't eat. Please, eat, eat, eat." He was getting pent up. Well, he could have been. I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but this is how they tell the story. So the father came back and he said, "So, what happened?" "Oh, I know. What happened in between?" So he said, "Eat, eat, eat." And immediately, all the food was gone. All the food was gone. And so the father came back and he said, "All right, where's the prasadam? I'm hungry." He said, "Well, you told me to offer it to Krishna. Krishna ate it." And the father was thinking, he's never usually a naughty boy, so I don't think he ate it. He sounds very sincere. So either a few minutes later or on another occasion, he made an offering of a laddu. And he saw his little boy, Raghunandan, saying, "Eat, my lord, please eat." And he was eating the laddu. And then Krishna, from the side of off to the side, he saw Mukunda watching. And so he stopped eating the laddu halfway through. Today, they say, if you go to Srikanda and you see Gopinath, you can have darshan of half a laddu, the miraculous half a laddu. Anyway, this heralded great things afterwards. So this story became so famous. I guess it's like Ganesh drinking milk. It was a manifestation. People tried to come up with different solutions for it, but it hasn't happened since. Same marble deity, the same milk, but on those particular days it was drinking the milk and not afterwards, all over the world. Later on, when Mukunda went with his son Raghunandan to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord asked him, he said, "My dear Mukunda," he said, "who is the father and who is the son? Who is the son and who is the father? I can't understand." And normally the father is the one who takes the role of guru in a family and teaches his children about Krishna. So in your family, who is it? Are you the father or is he your father? And Mukunda smiled and he said, "My Lord, it is definitely he, my son, who is my father, because he teaches me all about Krishna. I see him." And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Yes." He said, "He who gives Krishna in life, that is the Father." Yes, this is the process. He from whom we imbibe devotion, he is the Father, he is the Guru, and he will teach us Krishna consciousness. So that evening, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave special favor to Raghunandan, and he gave him a flower garland that he could offer to Jagannath as part of the Adivas ceremony, beginning the proceedings of Rath Yatra, I believe. Raghunandan, after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya, came to the Keturi festival. He was there. Keturi festival was the first, what we would call the Gora Purnima, first festival of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mother Janava, the wife of Nityananda, was there. All the Vaishnavas came from different places. This coming together of Vaishnavas from different places was very important in those days because there were 3 different theological institutions. There was Lord Nityananda and his cowherd men in Bengal, Bangladesh. there was the devotees in Jagannath Puri and the Goswamis of Vrindavan. So what they learned and what they taught and what they wrote, there were certain differences. So Mother Janava helped to, they all helped to codify the Krishna consciousness that we learn today. And of course, from that also we have the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Raghunandan's son was Kanai Thakur, and he spoke to one of the early preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement, Srinivas, and Srinivas posed a question to Raghunandan, which is interesting. And don't forget that Narahari Shakur Thakur is the writer of Sri Krishna Bhajanamritam, which sort of came at the right time in our Krishna consciousness movement. You remember? You remember when that was first published? You know, we were wondering in ISKCON what to do when a guru falls from the path of Krishna consciousness. What to do? Has it ever happened before in history? We were thinking this is the only time we've let all the acharyas down. And of course, someone at that point felt it appropriate to translate the Krishna Bhajanamrita, which was written, of course, in the days just after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, describing what to do if your guru drifts away from the path of Krishna consciousness. I can say things like this, right? This is a liberal assembly. We do teach this stuff now. So anyway, he'd written this book. And of course, Raghunandan, being a protege of Narahari Shakur Thakur, was fully informed. So Srinivasacharya goes to him and says the following question, which I thought was interesting. He says, "My Lord, it is Kali Yuga, and I see a difficult time coming for the Gaudiya Vaishnava community." He says, doubts can arise. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu have returned to the spiritual world. Devotees will become anxious. Even the advanced or the neophyte, they will worry about I don't know the actual words. So then Raghunandan Thakur says, Lord Chaitanya will accomplish many things through you, Srinivas, many great things. You follow your Lord, you achieve perfect religion, and many devotees in the future will take shelter of you. I just thought that was nice. So that Raghunandan had a deity known as Gaura Gopal, and he gave him to his son, Kanai Thakur. And he left this world repeating, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. What great devotees. Another person who was completely, absolutely devoted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Sri Vishnupriya, Lord Chaitanya's second wife. When Lakshmi Priya, his first wife, died of snake bite, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was requested by his mother. Now, it was said that Mother Sachi had already seen this young lady and thought that she might be a wonderful wife for her son. So she was the daughter of Raj Pandit Sanatan Mishra and his wife Mahamaya. And it's said that Sri Vishnupriya is the expansion of Satyabhama, the beloved queen of Krishna in Dwarka, and her father is Satrajit. And all, of course, are expansions of Srimati Radharani. She regularly worshipped Tulsi. There is a description in the Chaitanya Mangala and the Chaitanya Bhagavat of the marriage of Vishnupriya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was paid for. Scripture tells us. It's very important to know who pays for things. Just like Lord Nityananda in the Bhakti Ratnakar, Lord Nityananda and the 64 cowherd men are putting on these wonderful festivals, and they're going from village to village, and the Harinam is going on. But who paid for it? And who paid for it? Udaran Datta Thakur. Lord Chaitanya marries Vishnupriya, poor Brahmin community. Who pays for it? Well, Buddhimanta Khan paid for it. So these are two questions. What should we preach, and who will pay for it? These are the preacher's questions. So the Brahmins made a circle around the divine couple, and they chanted the Vedas as part of the wedding ceremony. But it wasn't to last very long. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was only 24 when he took sannyas. And just before he took sannyas, apparently there had been a rumor, and Vishnupriya said to him, "My Lord, is the rumor true that one day soon you will take sannyas?" And she addressed him as Prananath, Lord of my life. She said, "If that rumor is true, and you take sannyas and you go away and become a monk," she said, "then my life is over. I might as well take poison and die. What is the use of living?" Great devotion to her Lord. So he said, in this world, he said, there are only two things which are real. Everything else is false. What did he say? He says, Bhagavan is the only thing that is real, and the Vaishnavas. Bhagavan and the Vaishnavas. These are the only things that are real in this world. So he was preaching to her that this relationship between me and you, this marriage, is also unreal. So do not lament. Your name is Vishnupriya. I will go, but I will always remain at your place. So she began very severe austerities, and she would take hardly any food at all. She would chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and for every round that she chanted, she would take 1 grain of rice off a plate and put it on another plate. So at the end of the day, however many rounds she had chanted, at the end of the day, that was the amount of rice that was on the plate. She would boil that and she would eat it. And this became her life. And you can go to see the deity that she worshipped of Lord Chaitanya in a place in Navadvip. It is called Dhameshwara Mahaprabhu. You can see the shoes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can see the place where she worshipped him. Is that okay? And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I'm always a bit stuck on dates for Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And the reason is, it's difficult. Because Baladev Vijayabhushana's dates are a little bit slidey. Do you know, Maharaj? Some places we see that this, the big event that we know that we can pin the date of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on is the theological debate in Galta near Jaipur. And we know that Vishwanath was around 90 at that time, and so that would tell us his birthday. But then when you look at standard sources, you find that his dates was 1626 to 1708, and I'm just not sure. Anyway, he had 2 brothers, named Ramabhadra and Raghunath, another Raghunath. And his guru was someone called Shriyuta Krishna Charan Chakravarti, who was the fourth in line from Narottam Das Thakur. He renounced the world. They saw his, just like Raghunath Das Goswami, they saw his trajectory, so they got him married early. You know, parents, if you want to keep your children at home, get them married early, at least in medieval India, late medieval India. Get them married and then get them settled. That's why nobody likes it when Maharaj comes to someone's home and there's some young lads there. Let him stay, but don't keep him here too long. You can join the Hare Krishna temple, but not for too long. Yes, all right, you can go on the sabbatical, but come back home. Your university career is waiting. It's a delicate balance. Do we upset the parents and fill the ashram with bright, energetic young men? Or do we keep our place in polite Indian society in London and send them all off to university? What do? We've flipped and flopped between those two conceptions. I think we're flipping just slightly back the other way now, aren't we? So the idea is that get them married, get them into a career, get them educated, and they won't become sadhus. All right? That's what they thought. But with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they got him married, got a career, beautiful wife, and then he left home, became a sadhu. He came to Vrindavan, and he lived with another Mukunda Das, not Mukunda Datta that we've been hearing about, but another Mukunda. And he lived in the kutir of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami at Radhakund. The deity that he worshipped that you can still see today is Sri Golokananda. Anybody know what that deity is? Well, it says here Golokananda. I always thought it was Gokulananda. You know? Yeah. Samadhi is there, yeah. He was also known, and he also wrote commentaries in the name of Hari Ballabha. So sometimes you'll get a book or a song, and it's written by Hari Ballabha, and you think that that's a different person than Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Sometimes people write. Like J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling also writes as Robert Galbraith. Who knows? We all know the secret is out. So he wrote as Hari Ballabha. Bhaktivedanta Thakur also wrote as something Baul. You know that? So the songs would become popular. It's a way of circumventing. If people don't like who you are, then you write as someone else. But he did write many commentaries on the Goswami's works. So a lot of what we get today that Srila Prabhupada has taught us is through Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. When we hear what Prabhupada says in a purport and through the purport in a class, it's because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has said it. This is the interesting thing. If you read what Vishwanath has said, then you listen to Prabhupada's commentaries as he's giving them in a class or reading a purport, you'll hear Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as well as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinod. But you'll hear that. That's interesting. So Prema Samput is there, and of course Baladev Vidyabhushan goes on. We've come to the end. Any questions? I did have a section about Raghunath Das Goswami. But I think we've heard his story many times, haven't we? Raghunath Das always impresses me. Just the figures, just the mathematics. 100,000 names of God every day. 100,000 names. Classes, 3 hours. Obeisances, 2,000 times. Just, And the manifestation that accompanied this great saint, one who was so completely immersed in Krishna's names, is that even the tiger would come and drink water at the lake where he was chanting. And he just sat there chanting. There's a connection with great saints and the super soul. The super soul in the heart of the tiger says, don't go near him, he's all right. Don't. But don't try that if you're not a great saint. And Srimati Radharani also protected him. So he met with Janava Mata, who became the leader of the Vaishnavas after the disappearance of Lord Nityananda. And he was entrusted with the esoteric process of becoming Krishna conscious, whereas others like Vakreshwara Pandit were given the exoteric process of becoming Krishna conscious. Sometimes today you will find devotees, they like to think that they can jump over Srila Prabhupada. Specifically, they like to think they can jump over Srila Prabhupada and go to Radhakund. And so they like to read books by Babajis from Radhakund, and they like to wear Radhakund tilak. And I feel that we have to push back a little, because it is spreading like a bad cough. Sorry. Spreading like a bad cough. Our tilak is Gopi Chandan. That's what we've been given by His Divine Grace. That's what we wear. The color of your tilak is not a fashion, not a fashion statement. You wear some other color tilak and you are in another sampradaya, or you're declaring your affiliation. So with that remonstration, I will conclude. We have room for, I will finish at 25 We have a couple of questions. Yes, sir, front row, keen as mustard. Keen as mustard with the yellow flowers that bloom in Vasant Panchami in Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the class. Very beautiful.
Thank you for the chair.
Hare Krishna.
I've never sat in such a comfortable chair.
School of Bhakti.
School of Bhakti. How much did the chair cost, by the way? Who paid for it? Yeah, good.
I have two questions. Question number one, this is regarding Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
Oh dear.
Some of the other Sampradaya Acharyas, they made a statement, because the way he was writing his literature, his commentaries, is very much Rasika orientated. He put himself in the head of the protagonist in the specific Leelas.
Yeah.
He says Balaram was thinking like this, Krishna's thinking like this,
He does.
Mother Yashoda thinks like this. So the other Sampradaya say that he's an expansion or incarnation of Rupa Goswami as a Rasa Acharya. So that's the first question. Is this, how can we approach this? And the question number two, how can we as a followers of Gaudiya Vaishnavism accept these sort of commentaries? What should be our sort of a statement when we debate or discuss with other Sampradayas, that we actually put a lot of emphasis on revelations and sort of realizations of our acharyas on this specific topic? Because when you read his commentaries, you can see he brought a lot of points, a lot of topics which never been discussed before. And we accept it as a fact. So how can we approach these two things?
Of course, he does that with Bhagavad Gita as well. That's right. Bhagavad Gita says, Arjuna was thinking like this, and then Arjuna says something that he doesn't say in the Bhagavad Gita, but it's a commentary on top of a commentary. When we discuss with other sampradayas, or even we discuss with our own mind, we have to use the argument that we find most convincing, and the argument that they will find most convincing. In other words, there's multi-layers of arguments. The first approach is nyaya, or logic and reason. And logic and reason in Vaishnava circles is based on prasthana trayi. Prasthana trayi means the three scriptures that everyone accepts as being the starting points, prasthana, the starting point. But that was really set by Shankaracharya in sort of 850 AD in India. And all over India, people accept that if you're going to argue for the conclusion of a particular philosophy, it's Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta Sutra, or the Upanishads. All right? Yeah. So these three things. If you can conclude your presentation of your sampradaya, this is what we believe, this is what we believe to be true, this is what we act on, this is our sadhana, it's all based on this is our siddha. So if you argue on those three things, then you are recognized as a sampradaya everywhere in India. In the Western world, you kind of have to give scientific arguments, you have to give logical arguments. That's really the status quo, isn't it? That's the lingua franca, the international language. If you're discussing with another Vaishnava Sampradaya, then they will allow you to quote from the Puranas to establish your case. If you're debating with a Sri Vaishnava, it's mainly Vishnu Purana or maybe Padma Purana. If you're talking to another Gaudiya, then it is the Bhagavat Purana. And the legitimacy of the Bhagavat Purana has been established by Jiva Goswami, mainly by Jiva Goswami, who went to great pains to show how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the perfection of all the Vedas. Perfection of the Vedas is the Puranas, perfection of the Puranas is the Sattvic Puranas, perfection of the Sattvic Puranas is Bhagavat Purana. So that is a one ultimate authority. So it's Prasthana Trayi, those three main scriptures, plus the Srimad Bhagavatam. But your question dealt with the commentaries to the commentaries to the commentaries. Well, sometimes devotees will read those commentaries and they will say, this is all made up. This is from the mind of an author who is putting his feelings into the commentaries, and they'll come away from that and they'll feel it's insubstantial. In other words, it's not enough for my mind, with my level of faith, to be able to enter into an understanding of trust. And so those books we don't read. And Prabhupada was very sort of, very logical, very, and then sometimes when we enter into the commentaries, particularly of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, usually we do so with a filter of Prabhupada's words. Prabhupada takes these things. There are many pastimes, actually, that the Goswamis wrote, or the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote, that Srila Prabhupada did not give us. For instance, Prabhupada did not translate Prema Samput, or Vilap Kusumanjali, or different things. When Prabhupada was asked, what books will you translate next? He said, Mahabharata, Vishnu Purana. What was the other one? Bhagavad Gita. That's right, you can do it again. So Prabhupada was dealing, my understanding is that Prabhupada was dealing with the sort of premier level of faith. The danger is if you read something which was meant for a specialist, a highly advanced person, 300 years ago, you'll come away losing your faith. And the Goswamis kind of recognized that, because some of the books that the Goswamis wrote, they just buried them underground. That's why if you go to the Madan Mohan temple and you look at the top of the hill and you look out towards where the river, before the river is the Granth Samadhi. So those books are never to be dug up. So what does that say? So it's according to faith. According to faith. And according to faith is an appropriate literature for us. Now, sometimes one saint will say one thing and one saint will say another thing. How do we deal with that? Because we want the absolute truth, don't we? Well, the way I look at it is that you take all the writings of the Acharyas and you read them on your knees with tears in your eyes, with great sense of gratitude. You say, thank you for allowing me to read this. I don't understand it. I may never understand it. But somehow or another, I've been blessed that today I've heard this message. And you don't start thinking, do I accept it, do I not accept it? Like many people when they're coming into Krishna consciousness, they come to me with a tense, anxious expression on their face. They say, Prabhu, I really want to be a devotee, but how can we accept that, Timangila fish, how can we, is there any proof that there used to be a fish in the ocean that could swallow a blue whale? How do we accept? It says here, Narada Muni goes from planet to planet. When Prabhupada was asked that question, he said, there are so many things in the Srimad Bhagavatam you will not understand. One lady came to him and said, Prabhupada, I don't understand this. He said, read it again. He said, now do you understand? She said, no. He said, read it again. So she read it 6 times. And Prabhupada said, now do you understand? He said, I think so. He said, just read it and you will understand. There are many different layers. But we should feel ourselves very lucky. Was that the first question or the second question? That was both simultaneously, okay. Sir?
I was just thinking of the word basant.
Basant, yeah.
So vasa means residence and anta means the end. So when you come out of the house to enjoy the warmer weather. Is that right?
Well, that's a very good interpretation by a Sanskrit specialist. I'll take that interpretation. On my knees, with tears in my eyes. Anything else? Sir? I can hear you. That's just the people at home.
There's a nice letter by Prabhupada about different opinions. And there were some different opinions, I think, between Yamuna Devi Dasi and Tamakrishna Goswami. And
Can you hear?
Can you hear? Oh, sorry. Can you hear now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear now.
Okay, apologies. So there's a letter, and it talks about different opinions. And he also mentions about differences between he and his god brothers. But actually, the thing is, the conclusion is, they're all talking about Krishna. That actually their unity is that not their differences, is that the conclusions are that there are different opinions and different ways to what we follow, and also that there was another difference of opinion on between, as I say, Yamuna Devi Dasi and Tamakrishna. And actually, they both went to Prabhupada, and he said to them, which is right? He says, you're both right. And he just answered it like that.
Yeah.
And so I suppose that may seem confusing, but it's Prabhupada and his unifying the principle that they're all talking about Krishna.
Because our quest for understanding is founded upon the idea that an answer to a question is definitive and absolute, whereas we're not used to the idea of an answer to a question being relational. In other words, that this is his relationship with Godhead, this is his relationship with Godhead. And then there can be many different answers. So in the question, in the point that you've raised there, they had both come up with a conclusion that was right. And he said, yes, you're right. And he turned to her and she said, yes, you're right. And someone said, well, Prabhupada, how can they both be right? He said, yes, you're right.
Thank you.
All right. Hari. Vasant Panchami ki jai, Saraswati Devi ki jai. Hare Krishna.